In every corner of the galaxy, silence hides more than sound. Some worlds breathe light. Others remember the dark. What happens when the two begin to trade places? There are echoes here, old, human, and restless, waiting to be heard again. This isn't the future you've been promised. It's the one that's already begun. Take a breath and listen. The first light of Myrr-IX never reached the forest that morning. 2 hours before dawn, Silence Orchard was already swallowing brightness. Each leaf of umbra flora drinking starlight until the air itself turned pale. The ground was breathing cold. Somewhere inside that mist, a woman's voice broke the hush. Vital signs are dropping. PBR core to manual. Dr. Mira Halden knelt beside a fallen soldier. His armor still hissed with the heat of battle. The sensors on her wrist blinked red. No pulse. She exhaled once, calm but heavy, and opened the case of her prototype night cradle. The machine unfolded like an insect of glass and steel. Silver arms curved over the body, a ring of dim blue light sliding across his chest. Then silence. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Photons bent inward. Every flicker of warmth vanished. A low hum rippled through the soil, the sound of temperature itself leaving. The soldier's chest rose once. Then again. The screen flashed green, resuscitation complete. Mira smiled, and then froze. His eyes opened, bright as mirrors, and fixed on nothing. He looked alive, but the spark, the tiny chaos of being human, was gone. "Private? Can you hear me?" The man blinked twice, mouth trembling. "I can hear you, ma'am," he said softly. Then, with a strange calm, "Why is it so quiet?" Behind her, a drop of something dark fell from the canopy. She turned just in time to see it land beside the cradle, a dark fruit smooth as onyx. The soil hissed, whitened, and formed a perfect circle of frost. Cold vapor spiraled upward like a sigh. For a moment, she simply stared. The ring pulsed once, faint but rhythmic, as if answering a heartbeat. She reached down. The chill bit her skin, yet felt alive, aware. That was when her console flickered. A message blinked, telemetry link active, though she was offline. Someone, somewhere was listening. Far above, in the high citadel of Grey Bloom City, Dr. Kellen Drave watched a cluster of monitors. He saw the frost ring appear on a thermal map and leaned closer. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Control the cold, and you control life." He sent a silent command. "Begin data harvest." Mira didn't know the Umbratherm network had already branded her invention as property. A hidden chip in the night cradle came alive, siphoning every reading from her field unit. Her patient had become a transmitter. Hours passed. By the time the sun crawled over the horizon, the frost circle had melted into dew. But the air hadn't warmed. It stayed heavy like glass about to break. Mira checked the soldier again. Normal heartbeat. Normal brainwave, zero response to thermal comfort stimuli. He didn't feel warmth, hunger, or pain, just existence. She touched his wrist gently. "Tell me what you feel." He smiled without emotion. "Peace, I think." "Everything's still." Mira's hand tightened. "Stillness isn't peace," she said quietly. Her comlink crackled. "Halden, report." It was Captain Derek Vole, voice sharp from orbit. "Patient stabilized," she answered. "PBR efficiency 98%, but there's a residual resonance, something new. Umbratherm wants the data. Upload now." "I need more time to analyze." "That's an order." The line cut. She stared at the cradle's blue core. The hum was deeper now, almost like breathing. Maybe it was her imagination. Or maybe the machine was remembering. A gust passed through the orchard. Thousands of dark fruits quivered overhead, heavy with absorbed light. One after another began to fall, each landing with a soft thud that whispered through the trees. Dozens of frost rings spread across the forest floor, glowing faintly like lunar halos. Mira's recorder captured every frame. But when she checked the file, the video showed nothing, only static and a low, steady tone. In the sound wave, she noticed a pattern. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats again. A pulse, a message. She turned off the recorder. The forest answered with silence so deep it pressed against her chest. She whispered, almost to herself, "The forest is listening." No one replied. But the wind curved around her like a response. From somewhere far away, a thin mechanical signal blinked through Umbratherm's system, first sample confirmed. Drave leaned back in his chair, watching the frozen rings appear one by one across the satellite feed. He smiled. Phase 2 was ready. Back on the ground, Myrrh packed the night cradle and looked once more at the ring nearest her boots. It shimmered faintly, then melted into damp soil, leaving only the echo of cold in her fingertips. She didn't know it yet, but that pulse, the heartbeat made of ice, had already reached the city. The message from orbit arrived at dawn. Encrypted, urgent, Umbratherm. Priority channel, Dr. Mira Halden wiped frost from her console and opened the feed. Captain Derek Vole appeared in static, face half lit by the cold glow of command screens. "Doctor," he said, "corporate security requests full access to your PBR core." Her pulse quickened. "Access? That's my prototype." "It's not ready for a military link," Umbratherm insists. "They're citing emergency jurisdiction under Operation Pale Star." She stared at the frozen trees outside the tent. "The same people who caused Pale Star are now giving orders?" Vole hesitated. "I don't make the rules. They claim your cradle's resonance could stabilize the northern grid. That would save thousands," Mira's voice hardened. "Or turn the whole planet into one laboratory." The channel flickered. Then a second transmission appeared, private, unregistered. Noah Halden, her son. His face appeared pale and shaking inside the test chamber at Aris 7 Field Lab. "Mom?" The cradle's still running. "I can't." Static ripped through the image. Behind him, blue light surged and the feed went dark. Mira froze. "Noah, respond!" Only silence answered. A low hum, familiar, filled her cabin. The same sound from the forest ring. She forced herself to breathe. "Field command, this is Dr. Halden. My lab just initiated a PBR cycle without authorization. I need remote override now." The reply came in a corporate tone, not military. "This channel is restricted. Your credentials are under review. Please stand by." Her hands trembled. They had locked her out. They were watching. She opened the manual kernel, tracing the code by memory. There, an encrypted segment tagged UMB authseed, the same line she had seen inside the night cradle yesterday. Drave had turned her life's work into a weapon, and her son was inside it. The tent light dimmed as power shifted to the portable console. Mira whispered, "I'm coming, Noah." "Hold on." She rerouted the uplink, bypassed Umbratherm's firewall, and forced the data stream open. Heat maps flooded the screen, then a single reading, neural thermal drift detected. His body was alive, but his consciousness was sliding into a frozen loop. Midway through the breach, a warning tone cut across the signal. "Unauthorized access. Military penalty under Section 9. Mira ignored it. She copied the thermal core log onto a personal drive, isolating the lattice sequence that could reverse the freeze. Her hands moved faster than thought. Every keystroke felt like a heartbeat she might never get back. A shadow appeared at the tent's entrance. Vole. He looked exhausted, armor still streaked with frost. "Mira," he said quietly, "Umbratherm just flagged you for protocol violation. They're calling it an act of interference." She didn't look up. "My son is inside that machine. You'd do the same." "I'm not arguing that." He stepped closer. "But if you keep going, they'll claim you compromised planetary security. They'll seize everything, your lab, your work, maybe even him." Her voice shook but didn't break. "They already have him." For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside, the forest whispered, faint rings of frost forming again, answering the hum of the machine. Vole lowered his voice. "Listen to me. You're crossing a line you can't come back from." Mira turned off the monitor and met his eyes. "Then I'll cross it faster." He exhaled, torn between duty and something else. "Whatever you do next," he said, "do it before Drave does." The tent lights flickered as the cold deepened. Somewhere beneath the snow, Umbratherm's grid expanded its reach toward the lab. Mira tightened her coat, packed the drive, and stepped into the dark. By then, she was no longer a scientist under contract. She was a mother at war. Snow wasn't supposed to fall this far south on Myrr-IX. Yet by morning, white dust covered the roads of Grey Bloom Province, and the air tasted like copper. From the ridge, Dr. Myrrah Halden watched the relief convoy crawl through the valley. Hundreds of crates marked medical aid. Then one truck slowed, jolted, and stopped. Its wheels locked in place. The ground around it glazed over in seconds, frost spreading outward like veins of mercury. The next truck froze mid-turn, tires cracking like glass. In less than a minute, the entire column stood motionless. Solid, silver, dead quiet. Her earpiece filled with static, then a voice she knew too well. "Dr. Halden," said Dr. Kellen Drave, calm as a teacher addressing a class. "Unfortunate delay. The Umbragrid beta test seems to have reached your sector sooner than planned." Myrrah's jaw clenched. "You just froze a humanitarian convoy." "Temporarily," he replied. "The system overshot its cooling curve. We'll adjust. No one's dead yet." His tone was almost gentle. "But this should remind you why we need complete data access to your PBR lattice. You built the night cradle to save lives. Let us scale that miracle." Myrrah looked down at the still trucks. Inside one, she could see silhouettes, people trapped but alive, pounding faintly against frozen glass. "You're not scaling a miracle," she said. "You're mass-producing a tomb." Drave didn't flinch. "Every invention is a weapon until it's understood. We're standing on the edge of extinction, Doctor. The war burned half our oxygen fields, half our light harvesters. Cold is all we have left that still obeys us." The signal trembled under atmospheric noise, but his words cut through clearly. "Transfer your data key," he continued. "I'll release the convoy. You can still be part of the solution." Hours passed. The wind carried the sound of metal cracking. One of the trucks tilted, its cargo spilling across the road, vials of anti-lumen serum rolling in slow motion before freezing mid-bounce. Inside her chest, Myrrah felt something harden. She opened the uplink terminal, the same one she'd used to reach Noah's frozen chamber. The system demanded an encryption token, UMB primary lattice. It was Drave's domain. He'd built an ethical trap and dressed it in logic. "Surrender your discovery to save others, or let them die by your silence." Vol's voice broke in on a private channel. "Myrrah, don't answer him. Umbratherm's using that convoy as leverage. Once you transmit the core, they'll never give it back." Her breath shook. "They're freezing people alive?" "I know, but they're also recording your responses. One wrong transmission and they'll brand you a collaborator." She turned her gaze toward the forest below. The same frost rings were forming along the edge of the orchard, pulsing faintly in time with her heartbeat. Cold light, rhythmic, almost pleading. She keyed the transmitter but didn't send the file. "Dr. Drave," she said quietly, "you taught me once that control without compassion is entropy." "You're proving it." There was a pause. Then his voice softer now. "You misunderstand me, Myrrah. This isn't cruelty. It's preservation. Warmth breeds chaos. Cold creates order. If we can regulate life itself, we can end every war that will ever be." She closed her eyes. The echo of her son's last transmission flickered in her memory, his face lit by the cradle's blue glow, whispering her name. She knew what Drave wanted. He didn't crave peace. He wanted permanence. Her thumb hovered over transmit. She imagined the trucks below thawing, soldiers crawling out, people cheering. Then she imagined a world where Umbratherm decided who deserved warmth. "No," she said. Her finger pressed delete. The link snapped. A siren howled through the sky, metallic, endless. In Grey Bloom City, Drave turned from his console and nodded to his aides. "Activate Operation Pale Star. If she won't share it, we'll take it." Back on the ridge, Myrrah felt the wind change. A tremor moved beneath her boots. The horizon brightened, not with light, but with cold. A line of white fire swept across the clouds. Freezing them into glass, she whispered to the air, "So it begins." Then she ran, leaving footprints that turned to frost before fading into the silence. Night returned to Myrr-IX without stars. The wind carried the sound of cracking ice, fading into the trees like distant whispers. Dr. Myrrah Halden moved through the dark, guided only by the faint shimmer of the silence orchard. Each umbraflora leaf pulsed gently, breathing shadows instead of light. She was cold, hungry, and alone. Behind her, the sky still glowed faintly from Operation Pale Star, the frozen scar Drave had carved into the clouds. Every step she took into the forest felt like walking through another world, one untouched by human noise. Hours passed. When she finally stopped, the temperature had dropped so low her breath no longer misted. The air itself was asleep. A sound broke the stillness, a soft click, followed by a ripple of movement in the dark. Shapes emerged among the trees, tall, slender figures whose outlines shimmered like smoke. Their eyes caught the dim light, glowing with quiet awareness. The Kivin, the first, stepped forward. Skin pale silver, hair woven with faint strands of light. He bowed slightly. "I am Thrin Aval, keeper of the orchard," he said, not with words but through rhythmic silence. Each pause, each tilt of his head carried meaning. When he finally spoke aloud, his voice was low and calm. "You walk in the breath of our forest, human." "Few leave it unchanged." Myrrh lowered her hood. "I came looking for a signal. Something that started here." Another figure joined him, a younger one, eyes curious, movements sharp. "Luma Kay," he said with a grin, "and she didn't just find a signal. She made one." Thrin's gaze lingered on the night cradle strapped to her pack. "That device sings with the same silence as our trees. You've awakened echoes that were meant to sleep." Myrrh frowned. "Echoes?" The elder gestured to the forest floor. All around, faint circles of frost glowed softly, rings overlapping like ripples on water. "When a fruit falls," Thrin said, "it releases a memory of light once stolen. Too many rings and the balance collapses. The last time this happened, our skies turned to glass." She felt a shiver that wasn't from the cold. "I didn't mean to harm your world." Thrin studied her for a long moment. "Intent is not always the measure of consequence." Then softer, "But the forest listens. It chose to answer you." Luma crouched beside one of the frost rings. "It's still warm inside," he said, touching the edge. "She's connected to it somehow." Before Myrrh could reply, her wrist console blinked. An unauthorized transmission piggybacked on the cradle's dormant signal. She opened it. A single line of text appeared. "Frost Loom Array under construction. Gray Bloom City, Sub-Level 9. Her heart tightened. So Drave wasn't done. He was expanding the grid beneath the capital itself. She looked up at the Kivin. "I need your help." Thrin inclined his head slowly. "Then you must learn to speak without sound." The forest dimmed further, leaves folding as if listening again. Myrrh knelt among them, eyes closed, trying to mirror the rhythm of their silence. For the first time, the cold around her no longer bit. It breathed, and far away, deep beneath Grey Bloom's foundations, something vast began to stir. Snow wasn't supposed to fall this far south on Myrr-IX. Yet by morning, white dust covered the roads of Grey Bloom Province, and the air tasted like copper. From the ridge, Dr. Mira Halden watched the relief convoy crawl through the valley. Hundreds of crates marked medical aid. Then one truck slowed, jolted, and stopped, its wheels locked in place. The ground around it glazed over in seconds, frost spreading outward like veins of mercury. The next truck froze mid-turn, tires cracking like glass. In less than a minute, the entire column stood motionless, solid, silver, dead quiet, her earpiece filled with static, then a voice she knew too well. "Dr. Halden," said Dr. Kellen Drave, calm as a teacher addressing a class. "Unfortunate delay. The Umbragrid beta test seems to have reached your sector sooner than planned." Mira's jaw clenched. "You just froze a humanitarian convoy." "Temporarily," he replied. "The system overshot its cooling curve." "We'll adjust. No one's dead yet." His tone was almost gentle. "But this should remind you why we need complete data access to your PBR lattice. You built the night cradle to save lives. Let us scale that miracle." Mira looked down at the still trucks. Inside one, she could see silhouettes, people trapped but alive, pounding faintly against frozen glass. "You're not scaling a miracle," she said. "You're mass-producing a tomb." Drave didn't flinch. "Every invention is a weapon until it's understood. We're standing on the edge of extinction, Doctor. The war burned half our oxygen fields, half our light harvesters. Cold is all we have left that still obeys us. The signal trembled under atmospheric noise, but his words cut through clearly. Transfer your data key, he continued. I'll release the convoy. You can still be part of the solution. Hours passed. The wind carried the sound of metal cracking. One of the trucks tilted, its cargo spilling across the road, vials of anti-lumen serum rolling in slow motion before freezing mid-bounce. Inside her chest, Myrrh felt something harden. She opened the uplink terminal, the same one she'd used to reach Noah's frozen chamber. The system demanded an encryption token, UMB primary lattice. It was Drave's domain. He'd built an ethical trap and dressed it in logic. Surrender your discovery to save others, or let them die by your silence. Vol's voice broke in on a private channel. Myrrh, don't answer him. Umbratherm's using that convoy as leverage. Once you transmit the core, they'll never give it back. Her breath shook. They're freezing people alive? I know, but they're also recording your responses. One wrong transmission and they'll brand you a collaborator. She turned her gaze toward the forest below. The same frost rings were forming along the edge of the orchard, pulsing faintly in time with her heartbeat. Cold light, rhythmic, almost pleading. She keyed the transmitter but didn't send the file. Dr. Drave, she said quietly, you taught me once that control without compassion is entropy. You're proving it. There was a pause. Then his voice softer now. You misunderstand me, Myrrh. This isn't cruelty. It's preservation. Warmth breeds chaos. Cold creates order. If we can regulate life itself, we can end every war that will ever be. She closed her eyes. The echo of her son's last transmission flickered in her memory, his face lit by the cradle's blue glow, whispering her name. She knew what Drave wanted. He didn't crave peace. He wanted permanence. Her thumb hovered over transmit. She imagined the trucks below thawing, soldiers crawling out, people cheering. Then she imagined a world where Umbratherm decided who deserved warmth. No, she said. Her finger pressed delete. The link snapped. A siren howled through the sky, metallic, endless. In Grey Bloom City, Drave turned from his console and nodded to his aides. Activate Operation Pale Star. If she won't share it, we'll take it. Back on the ridge, Myrrh felt the wind change. A tremor moved beneath her boots. The horizon brightened, not with light but with cold. A line of white fire swept across the clouds, freezing them into glass. She whispered to the air, "So it begins." Then she ran, leaving footprints that turned to frost before fading into the silence. 6 hours before sunset, the market square stopped breathing. A thin glare ran across the cobbles, then locked everything in place. Vendors froze mid-gesture. Baskets slid and halted on a rim of rime. A stringed instrument rang once, then died. Dr. Myrrh Halden reached the edge of Grey Bloom City with Luma Kay beside her. They saw the frost advance like a careful hand. It stroked stalls, steps, and shoes. People stumbled and fell without bruises. The cold held them upright. "Umbragrid," Luma whispered. His breath made no cloud. Their warning. Written in ice. Myrrh tapped her wrist console. Local power signatures? "Clean," Luma said. No normal grid. Only their breath. Myrrh pointed toward a toppled canopy. A child lay there, Kivin, small and still. His lips moved once without sound. They ran. The frost cracked under Myrrh's boots and knit itself again. Her fingers shook as she opened the night cradle pack. Silver arcs unfolded and hovered over the child. "Vitals are shallow," she said. "Pulse irregular. Thermal stress in the cortex." Luma crouched, hands hovering near the ring of frost. He moved in Amengu Kivin, speaking with pauses and shade. The trees beyond the market stirred in answer. Dark leaves tilted toward the square. Across the plaza, armored carriers rolled in. Captain Derek Vol stepped down and scanned the scene. His visor reflected a dozen frozen faces. He saw Myrrh and stopped. "You're in a live test zone," he said. "Umbratherm is calibrating the net. Stay clear." "Tell them to stop," Myrrh said. "This is not calibration. It is arrest," static popped in Vol's earpiece. "Corporate cadence, cool and precise. Hold perimeter. Record compliance metrics." He flinched and lowered the volume. "Myrrh," Vol said. "If I countermand, they shut me out. I lose command." He looked at the child. "What are you doing?" Lowering the PBR threshold, she said, only enough to loosen the freeze. Her thumb hovered over a red slider. The cradle will take the excess into me. Luma stared at her. That cost is personal. It is mine to pay, she said. Another carrier hissed open. Umbratherm agents deployed sensors around the square. They planted slender rods along the gutters. Each rod flashed the same code, pale and steady. Vol watched them with tight shoulders. This is a display, he said softly. Fear, dressed like order, Myrrh met his eyes. Help me by 1 minute. He nodded once. 40 seconds. After that, I lose the channel. He turned to his squad. Secure the west approach, he said. Check for structural collapse. The squad moved, confused but compliant. Vol stepped into the lens of a street camera. He blocked its view with his shoulder. For a moment, the market belonged to breath and will. Myrrh leaned over the child. She adjusted the cradle's lattice map. A deep tone rose from the machine. The air seemed to lean inward. Shadow can't, Luma said to the boy. He tapped 3 slow beats on the cobble. He opened his hands toward the forest edge. Leaves trembled. A soft shade pooled under the cradle. Myrrh watched the readouts fall. Core drop 5 degrees, she said. Neural load shifting. She felt the pull in her skull. A cold thread slipped through a hidden door. Memories stirred and slid. She smelled lemon oil and sterilized glass. She heard laughter through a lab window. A baby's cry cut the air, bright and wild. Then the scene fogged and drifted away. Stay with me, Luma said. His voice was gentle and firm. Only what you choose to give. Myrrh held the slider steady. The cold threaded deeper. Something familiar dissolved at the edges. A birthday candle. A paper star. A lullaby without words. The child gasped. His chest hitched. Color seeped back into his lips. His eyes opened and fixed on Luma's hand. He made a small sign in shadow. Luma answered with gratitude and relief. Across the square, an agent noticed the cradle's glow. Unauthorized PBR sequence, he called out. Shut it down, Foal lifted a hand. Negative, he said. Medical stabilization in progress. He didn't look at the agent. He stared at the frost and counted heartbeats. The cradle beeped softly. Stabilized, Myrrh said. She raised the lattice 1 notch. The pull eased. The thread of cold thinned and lifted. She swayed. Luma caught her elbow. Myrrh, look at me. She focused and found his face. What did I lose? Something happy, Luma said gently. Something you can grow back in another form. She nodded once. I will plant it here, she said. She looked at the boy. Rest, you're safe. A low tone rolled across the city. The frozen stalls chimed like glass. A new pattern formed along the rooftops. Fine veins of frost linked light posts and wires. The market had become a circuit, Vol's visor lit with warnings. He spoke without turning. They are logging every reaction, every step, every delay. Let them log, Myrrh said. Write this line down. We are not obedient machines. A hollow window blinked open near Vol's helm. Dr. Kellendrave appeared, cool and precise. Captain, confirm containment parameters, he said. Then he saw Myrrh and tilted his head. Dr. Halden, your compassion remains consistent. Release the square, Myrrh said. People will die if you keep tuning. On the contrary, Drave said. We prevented panic. We prevented stampede injuries. We proved deterrence. His eyes softened, almost kind. Control prevents the worst. Cold is control. Myrrh stepped closer to the camera. You turned a city into a demonstration. Drave's voice never rose. You turned cold into a cure. We only scaled your idea. He glanced at the cradle. Interesting modulation. Personal uptake of thermal load. That will be useful. Luma moved between them and the lens. He raised his hands and cast a deliberate shadow. The screen shimmered, then fuzzed. He smiled, small and fierce. Vol's jaw flexed. Sir, request permission to resume humanitarian thawing. Denied, Drave said. Hold phase. Collect fear metrics. Then release. Myrrh's radio crackled with a new voice. A Kivin elder, grave and measured. Thrin Aval spoke from the forest edge. The orchard hears your square, he said. The rings multiply. Balance shakes, Myrrh answered softly. I saved a child, she said. I also gave something away. Thrin's silence carried meaning. Gifts bind things. Choose them with care. The wind shifted. A string of vendor flags quivered and broke free. They drifted and stuck to a frozen wall, motionless and bright. Drave's hollow wavered, then sharpened. Doctor, a partnership would end this testing, he said. Give us the PBR kernel. We will release the market at once. Myrrah's thumb grazed the drive at her belt. She felt the absence inside her mind. She felt the small, living weight of mercy. No, she said. I will not feed your doctrine. Drave inclined his head. Then we proceed. Phase complete in 4 minutes. Captain, Myrrah said to Vol, this is your line. Vol stared at the grid across the roofs. He saw families pressed behind windows. He saw the child breathing at Myrrah's feet. His voice was quiet. We thaw the exit lanes now, he said. He waved his squad forward. Manual frost break. Shields to high friction! Move! Agents yelled. Orders clashed. Steel bit ice. Pathways opened, thin but real. Drave's image cooled a degree. Noted, he said. Captain, your deviation is recorded. Record this too, Vol said. We are here to save citizens. The frost lines dimmed by a fraction. Lights flickered in the nearest tower. A slow cheer rose behind glass. Myrrah closed the cradle. She slipped the drive deeper into her coat. The boy gripped Luma's fingers and stood. He pointed toward the forest. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats again. Listen, Luma murmured. The orchard is speaking in the city. Myrrah looked up at the web of ice overhead. It looked like a loom. It looked like intent. The sun sank low. The wind turned sharp and cold. The city agreed. Shadows lengthened and held. The test continued. Myrrah gathered her gear. She met Vol's eyes. We keep moving, she said. We find the sub-levels. We cut the loom. Vol nodded once. I will stall the next phase, he said. I can stall, but not for long. Luma pulled the veil mask from his pack. He held it up like a promise. We slip past their cameras, he said. We write in their blind spots. Myrrah smiled, small and tired. Then we speak without sound. They stepped into the artery of a side street. The frost cracked, then healed behind them. Above, the grid hummed like a throat clearing. By the second night, the wind turned colder. At dawn, the city accused its savior. Screens above Grey Bloom flashed a single image. Dr. Mira Halden standing over the frozen market. A banner scrolled beneath. Umbra Therm prevents catastrophic freeze triggered by rogue scientist. Her voice, stolen from an old briefing, echoed across the towers. I initiated the lattice manually. I accept full responsibility. The words were real. The context was gone. In the forest bunker, static spilled from a cracked receiver. Luma Q slammed it shut. They cut your story in half. Mira stared at the dim light filtering through the canopy. Half the truth is the easiest lie. Captain Vol paced the narrow space, armor unsealed, eyes red from no sleep. Umbra Therm turned the footage before we even left the square. They call it preventive intervention. Half the population believes you froze them on purpose. Good, Mira said quietly. They'll listen to fear. Fear makes them watch. Vol stopped. You can't outthink a machine with panic as its algorithm. Thrin Aval's shadow stretched along the cave wall. The elder Kivin spoke softly, pauses measured like heartbeat gaps. In our world, a healer who wounds the forest is named cursed until the soil forgives. Will your people forgive you, human doctor? Mira met his luminous eyes. I don't need forgiveness. I need leverage. Luma looked between them. We need truth, not leverage. Truth, Vol said, is whatever Drave uploads next. A gust shuddered through the opening, carrying distant city sirens. The silence orchard had begun to hum again, low and uneasy. Hours later, their argument filled the bunker like heat that couldn't escape. Threen set his staff down. One child, Mira. One. Is that your measure of victory? Mira turned. That child is proof the cradle can reverse the grid. If I find Noah, I can use his link to shut it down everywhere. Thrin's gaze hardened. Your blood binds that boy, but the cold binds all of us. Luma's voice cut through, younger, sharper. One life can ignite a world. What kind of world survives if it lets children freeze? Vol rubbed his forehead. We're spinning circles. Drave is framing her as a terrorist. Umbratherm's public feed shows casualties dropping, grids expanding, citizens cheering. They just passed a decree, Central Cold Management Act. He's rewriting the war as climate salvation. Myrrh sank onto a crate. He's winning with words. Silence. Then Luma said, "Then we speak without them." He opened a cloth pouch and pulled out thin shards of reflective crystal. They see us through light. So we hide inside the absence, Thryn frowned. You plan to vanish? Not vanish, Luma said, smiling faintly. Blend. He assembled the pieces, wiring them into a curved mask. Their cameras register photons. We teach the shadows to write code in their blind spots. Myrrh leaned closer. You're using Am-Ungu Kivan, but folded into optics. Exactly. He pressed the mask to the cave wall. Light bent, shimmered, then vanished, leaving only a dark signature like a fingerprint. They can't see what listens to them. Foal stepped forward. Will it hold under their spectrum sweep? Only if someone feeds it pulse timing, Luma said. Myrrh, your cradle logs use a similar rhythm. It's the same heartbeat frequency. She smiled for the first time in days. Let's make them blind to their own sight. They spent the next hour weaving wires and shadow glass. Every few minutes, the receiver cracked with more broadcasts, protests, orders, a bounty on Myrrh's capture. Umbratherm security guarantees warmth. Report any anomaly of human or alien origin. By midday, rumor had grown heavier than truth. Even the birds had stopped calling above the bunker. Time to test, Luma said. He slipped on the mask. The edges fused to his skin with a soft hum. The air around him blurred, and he faded, visible only as a ripple. Myrrh activated the night cradle's diagnostic lens. Her console showed nothing. Not even thermal residue. You did it! Foal's tone was half awe, half dread. With that thing, we could walk right through Umbratherm's gates. Thryn's staff struck the ground softly. Every tool of hiding carries a debt. Remember that, child. Luma removed the mask, eyes wide and bright. Dead or not, it's our first weapon that doesn't kill. Myrrh connected her portable drive. We go tonight. We reach the satellite uplink. If Drave can twist a story in one breath, we'll give the world another. She glanced at Vol. You still know the military sub-channel codes? He hesitated, then nodded. Still locked in my suit. If I use them, I lose my rank for good. Maybe that's how you find it again, she said. He didn't argue. The light outside shifted, silver becoming blue, blue turning to shadow. The hum of the orchard deepened, echoing their heartbeat. Thryn looked toward the fading sky. The day folds. Choose your silence wisely. Myrrh secured the cradle to her back. Luma tightened the veil mask strap around his wrist. Foal checked the pulse rifle he no longer believed in. Ready? Myrrh asked. Luma nodded. Ready to ride in darkness. They stepped out, leaving the bunker's dim warmth behind. As they moved through the trees, the frost rings flickered faintly beneath their feet. Each one a memory. Each one a warning. From somewhere deep in Grey Bloom's underbelly, a new signal pulsed, rhythmic and slow. Umbratherm was building something larger than rumor now, something mechanical and alive. Myrrh didn't look back. Tonight, she said, we steal the sky's attention. The sky flickered, and the forest screamed. Light burst white, then folded inward, collapsing into a pulse that rolled through the trees. The ground quivered. Umbraflora petals snapped shut, leaking threads of pale blue mist. Dr. Myrrh Halden dropped to one knee, shielding her console. The air vibrated like a struck bell, low, hollow, endless. Anti-lumen pulse, she said. He's faking a natural surge. Luma covered his ears. It's burning the light out of the dark. Leaves shimmered, their veins flaring with frozen lines. Wherever the pulse touched, photosynthetic glow inverted, white turning black, black turning glassy. The entire silence orchard began to blink like a dying star field. Through the chaos, Captain Vol shouted over comm static, Umbratherm just declared a containment event. City News calls it a magnetic bloom. They're expanding Umbragrid to stabilize atmospheric density. Myrrh laughed, short, bitter. Stabilize? He's writing policy through disaster. Hours later, when the shock waves faded, the group regrouped inside a hollow trunk big enough to hide a shuttle. The bark still glowed faintly, warm where the pulse had missed. Myrrah's hands trembled as she set the cracked console on the ground. "Signal feeds scrambled," she said. "But the satellites are still whispering." Luma leaned close. "We can listen back through their noise." He spread the veil mask over the console, casting a soft, moving shade. The flicker slowed, shapes began to form. Grids, thermal maps, fracture lines. A buried network pulsed below Greybloom City, deeper than infrastructure ever should go. "What is that?" Vole asked. "The Frost Loom Array," Myrrah said. Her voice was steady, but her face had gone pale. "They're not cooling the city. They're breeding cold." Luma squinted at the map. "Artificial ice veins. Regular spacing. Flow rate controlled to millikelvins. Each vein corresponds to a residential cluster," Myrrah said. "The lower the energy consumption, the denser the frost. He's shaping population behavior by temperature, keeping the poor compliant, keeping the rich warm." Vole stared at the blinking nodes. "You're saying they're refrigerating people?" "Exactly." Myrrah looked up. "He's not saving the world. He's refrigerating it," Vole exhaled slowly. "Maybe he thinks that's salvation." Thrin Aval's deep voice filled the hollow. "When warmth becomes a privilege," he said, "the cold becomes faith." A distant thunder rippled through the orchard again. This time not natural, mechanical. The frost loom was breathing, hours later. They sat around a dim blue lantern, silence heavy between them. Each glow of the light traced exhaustion across their faces. Myrrah replayed the pulse data again and again, the same sharp spike each time. "He's masking the array construction as environmental correction. Every anti-lumen surge resets the frost veins, and no one questions it because it looks like weather," Luma muttered. "He's freezing cities under the name of balance." Vole leaned against the trunk, helmet off, eyes on the floor. "When I joined Umbra Therm, they called it restoration. Said we were rebuilding what humans broke. Maybe they were right, just not about who we were saving." Myrrah looked at him, calm but tired. "You can still choose who you serve." He gave a hollow smile. "You think choice still exists in their architecture?" He held up his wrist pad. "Everything I do is logged. Even this conversation." Thrin placed a hand on the bark wall. "Wood remembers differently," he said. "Not through code, but through echoes." Luma tapped the console, voice quick. "If we can intercept one genuine uplink from the array's core, I can trace its command latency. That'll tell us where the false feed starts." "Show me," Myrrah said. A matrix unfolded, hundreds of green threads forming a sphere. In its center blinked a single red line, unbroken. "That's the control relay," Luma explained. "Everything loops through one node under Greybloom's southern sector." Vole straightened. "South sector reports came through my old channel. I can compare them." He accessed his unit's archive. Data scrolled fast. Graphs, signatures, timestamps. Then his expression changed. "Myrrah," he whispered, "the numbers don't match." "What do you mean?" "These readings, they were altered before publication. The official report says the frost depth never exceeded 3 meters. My original log shows 12. Myrrah frowned. "They falsified it to hide the array's depth." Vole kept scrolling, voice lower. "They forged my signature too." He stared at the glowing screen as if it were a mirror. All those years of protocol, of measured obedience, collapsed into noise. Myrrah watched him quietly. "This is what Drave does. He doesn't conquer people. He edits them." Vole's hand tightened around the pad. "Then maybe it's time I become the error he can't correct." The group fell silent. Outside, the wind carried a faint metallic hum, like wires straining in cold air. Thrin extinguished the lantern. "In our lore," he said softly, "when a maker hides his work, the forest roots grow toward it." "You cannot bury what breathes," Luma whispered. "Then we dig, before it breathes again." Myrrah nodded. "We'll need to enter through the vent lines, below the thermal pumps. The pulse already cracked some conduits. If we move tonight, we can reach the sublayer before dawn." Vole looked up. "I'll lead you in. My clearance codes still work. Are you sure?" Myrrah asked. He met her gaze. "I built those locks. I should be the one to open them." For a long second, no one spoke. Only the forest exhaled, soft, slow, uncertain. Then Myrrah said, "We leave in 1 hour." She gathered her tools, her eyes fixed on the faint light through the bark. The pulse outside had quieted, but the air still buzzed with hidden static. That night, even the wind seemed to hesitate. 6 hours before total freeze, the boy stopped breathing. Sensors across Grey Bloom City dimmed as the Umbra grid resynced itself, every flicker of light, every heartbeat, calibrated to one living key, Noah Halden. Inside the forest hollow, Myrrah's console screamed a new tone. The cradle's signal pulsed in a rhythm she knew too well. 3 short, 1 long, 2 short. Her son's neural pattern. Then came Drave's voice, smooth and distant. "He's safe, Doctor. Safe as long as the grid breathes." A pause, then colder words. "Help me finish this and he lives." Myrrah froze. The others watched the color drain from her face. Vol's hand went to his comm link. "Drave's inside our frequency. How?" Luma whispered. "He's speaking through Noah's link." Myrrah steadied herself. "Show me his vitals." The screen blinked. A silhouette appeared, a small body encased in frostlight, connected by dozens of thin cables. The chamber around him glowed like a cathedral made of ice. Drave's image bled into the feed. The system needed a stable resonance. "Your child carries the original lattice you designed, Doctor. The Umbra grid lives through him now. He's not a prisoner. He's the core," Myrrah whispered. "You turned him into a lock." "Into balance," Drave corrected. The human body's chaos harmonized the grid. For the first time, no power surge, no collapse. Just stillness. He smiled faintly. "Your work saved millions. Don't ruin it with sentiment." Vol stepped forward, his voice hard. "You call that salvation? You hijacked a child's body." Drave ignored him. "Myrrah knows what's at stake. Join me, Doctor. Guide the next phase. If you resist, well, every command pulse must reset through the biological relay." The implication landed heavy. If they cut the link, Noah would die. The feed cut out. Only static remained. Luma slammed the console shut. "We can't even touch the relay without hurting him." Vol muttered. "The freeze countdown's already started." He turned his wrist display. T6, back, glowed in crimson across the holographic dial. 6 hours until continental stasis. After that, Umbra Therm seals every thermal gate. Myrrah didn't blink. "Then we stop it before the next pulse." Thrin Aval watched her quietly, ancient patience behind his eyes. "The child is inside the grid's breath. To break it is to silence him. To save him, you must speak to the cold itself." "I'll learn," she said. "You cannot," Thrin replied. "No human has ever spoken the language of absence." Myrrah turned toward the faint blue mist leaking from the forest floor. "Then we teach the void to listen." Hours passed. Frost veins crept through the woods like white lightning under glass. Every branch hummed with invisible current. Vol and Luma worked side by side, tracing code across mirrored leaves and brittle conduits. Myrrah stood in the center, silent, eyes closed. She was remembering. Years ago, she'd built the first prototype of photonic band-gap refrigeration, a way to cool matter through manipulated silence. Now she saw how the Kiven had mastered that silence not with equations but with rhythm, Amningyu Kiven, a language made of shadows and intervals. Each gap carried meaning. Each pause bent reality. She opened her eyes. "Luma, play me the orchard's resonance." He nodded. He pressed his palms to the soil and a deep hum rose from beneath them, low, musical, almost sorrowful. Myrrah listened, lips moving softly as if repeating after it. Thrin's brows drew together. "You imitate what cannot be mimicked." "Not imitate," Myrrah said. "Translate." Her breath fogged as she spoke again, slower, matching the forest's pulse. The frost on the walls rippled, then parted slightly as if listening. Luma's eyes widened. "She's sinking." Myrrah's console flashed green. Data flooded through the cradle. The Z-Quench protocol, a hybrid algorithm of sound and shadow, began to take shape. "If we phase it right," Myrrah said, "we can speak into the core, invert the frequency, and free him without severing the link." Vol frowned. "You mean, talk to the grid like it's alive?" "It is alive," she said quietly. "Because he's in there." Vol stepped back, shaken. "Myrrah, If you go into that field, it could rewrite your neural pattern. You'll come out. Different, she smiled faintly. I already am. A tremor rolled through the ground. From far off, the sound of the frost turbines echoed like waves breaking. The countdown ticked to T35840. They stood before the outer gate of the frost loom array, a dome of shifting mirrors, light bending around its seams. The surface breathed, inhaling shadows, exhaling mist. This is it, Vol said. Beyond that wall, the core chamber. Thryn raised his staff, pressing it to the frozen ground. The orchard can hold the air still for 10 heartbeats. After that, the pulse resumes. Luma adjusted his mask. 10 heartbeats, enough. Myrrah turned to them both. If the grid reacts, pull back. Don't wait for me. Vol's voice broke through the chill. Don't say that. She looked at him, steady, almost gentle. Someone has to speak first. Thryn shook his head. No human has ever spoken the language of absence. Myrrah looked at the dying light stretching across the snowfields. Then let's teach the void to listen. She stepped forward, hand outstretched toward the glass wall. The frost parted slightly, whispering in tones too low for air. Her reflection fractured into 1,000 moving shards. Each shard shimmered with a heartbeat she recognized. Her son's. Luma whispered, She's entering the resonance. The dome pulsed once, swallowing light. The others shielded their eyes. When it cleared, Myrrah and Luma stood on the threshold, surrounded by a halo of drifting shadows. Beyond them, the core glowed, a sphere of pure white silence. The wind held its breath. By the second night, the wind turned colder. A new broadcast shimmered across the cold air above Greybloom City, a holographic headline twisting Myrrah's face into something unrecognizable. Dr. Myrrah Halden traded memory for life, the report said. Footage followed, fabricated scenes of her standing over the night cradle, eyes blank, while a child's breath froze behind glass. The words cut deeper than the frost itself. Even in the silence orchard, where transmissions rarely reached, the echo of rumor crawled between the trees. Luma crushed a glowing seed under his palm. They're saying you gave him away, to save yourself. Myrrah didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the frost-veined horizon. The grid needed a story, she murmured. Now they've found their villain. Captain Vol paced nearby, his voice tight. Drave's good. He didn't just make people fear you. He made them depend on him to forgive you. Thryne Aval, standing at the forest edge, said nothing. The elder's eyes glimmered like dull ice, unreadable. The silence between them grew heavy. Finally, Myrrah said, He's right. There's truth buried in that lie. She turned toward Thryn. I did push Noah too fast. I thought the cradle could hold the neural load. I thought I could hold him safe inside the cold. Her voice cracked, the confession sliding out like vapor. I was wrong. The forest seemed to dim around her. Thryn's voice was soft but stern. Truth is not a wound if you tend it. But if you hide it, it rots. Myrrah stepped closer. Then tell me how to make it right. Thryn studied her for a long time. By saving your child, without killing my world. Hours later, deep beneath the orchard, the group gathered around the portable hub they'd built from salvaged Kiven light conduits. The air thrummed faintly, the sound of Umbratherm's pulse reverberating underground. Every surge carried a whisper of Noah's biometrics through the grid. Luma adjusted the readings. Drave amplified your emotional resonance as a power source. Every time you think of him, the grid stabilizes. Myrrah stared at the oscillating lines. He's using love as circuitry. Vol cursed under his breath. Weaponizing feeling. That's new, even for him. Thryn's expression darkened. In our lore, emotion feeds growth. He has twisted it into ice. Midway through their work, the bark wall behind them quivered, thin light rippling through the veins like heartbeat trails. A new feed cracked open across Myrrah's console, a message in Drave's voice. 3 hours, Myrrah. Every delay cools another district. They call you the Ice Mother now. How poetic, she cut the transmission. He wants me to hesitate. Vol replied, then don't. But the hesitation was already there, alive behind her eyes. As night crept over Myrr-IX, a low fog filled the hollows. They worked in dim violet light, Adjusting the PBR core schematic Thryn had drawn in sand, each conduit links to a photonic throat, Thryn explained. Disturb one and the forest freezes. So you're saying, Vol interrupted, if we go in fast, we'll kill the trees. Thryn nodded. Save your child, burn the world. Save the world! Lose him! The words hit Myrrh like physical force. For a long moment, no one spoke, only the hum of the frost. Then she knelt beside the drawing, tracing the loops with one finger. There has to be another path. The grid breathes. If I can match its rhythm, I can reach the core without piercing it. Luma looked up. You mean speak to it again? Yes, through the shadow cant. But this time I'll use its own pulse against itself. Thryn regarded her silently, then spoke in the ancient pattern of pauses and soft consonants. The forest echoed back. You risk more than life, Mira Halden. You risk memory. Our kind call that the bleaching, when the mind forgets warmth to survive the cold. Mira smiled faintly. I've already forgotten what warmth feels like. Vol's voice dropped. Don't say that. She turned to him. When this began, I thought saving Noah meant keeping him alive. Now I think it means remembering him, even if he doesn't remember me. The console chimed, a new surge in the Umbra grid. The timer shifted. 3 Obao blinked red across the screen. A tremor ran through the soil. Umbra flora flared, each leaf flashing white, then black. From above came the distant roar of collapsing glass towers. The frost's spreading faster, Vol said. He's rerouting power from the hospitals to the loom array. Thryn gripped his staff. The world hardens because your enemy believes stillness is purity. Myrrh exhaled slowly. Then we'll give him motion. She opened a new channel, voice low. Z-Quench prototype. I need you both to stabilize the sub-harmonic layer. If this works, we might carve a path without damaging the forest. Luma nodded eagerly. I'll shadow the conduits. Thryn inclined his head. I will hold the air still. The sequence began. Waves of cold energy rippled outward, faint silver lines weaving through roots and stone. For the first time, the frost didn't shatter. It curved. The rift between organic and synthetic light narrowed. Vol stared, whispering, She's doing it. Mira whispered back, Not yet. The harmonics shifted again, deeper, cleaner. Somewhere in the distance, the frost cracked open, revealing a pulse of living green. When the surge ended, the silence returned thicker than before. Mira's hands trembled over the console. Her voice was hoarse. He'll sense that breach. We just told him we're close. Vol placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we move now. Thryn raised his staff once more. Remember what I said, Mira Halden. Cure the cold, but not by burning the roots. She nodded, eyes tired but clear. If the forest dies, there's nothing left worth saving. Luma gathered their tools, his voice small but steady. Then let's make sure it breathes when we're done. As they left the hollow, frost motes drifted down like slow snow, glowing faintly where they touched her skin. Each one carried a memory she could no longer hold. 3 hours left. And the world had started to remember her sins. They stepped into the shadows as if stepping into memory. Frost light refracted through 1,000 glass veins above them, tubes of ice humming with quiet data. Each pulse of light moved like breath inside the bones of the planet. Mira watched it with awe and fear. She whispered, This place remembers every mistake we made. Beside her, Luma K adjusted the veil mask, its mirrored surface catching faint ripples of movement. Then let's write a better one. Captain Vol led the way, pulse rifle lowered but ready. The path ahead wound downward through translucent corridors of umbra flora roots, all feeding into the frost loom array. Every few steps, the ground vibrated, heartbeat of the umbra grid counting down their time. 2 hours, 40 minutes. Vol muttered, Let's make them count. Halfway down the corridor, the light changed. Blue turned silver. Silver turned black. The system was adapting, absorbing the warmth of their bodies, rewriting the color of the air itself. Luma hissed softly. It's sensing us. The cameras, Mira cut him off. They're not just cameras anymore. Umbratherm trained them to recognize pattern, not face. On cue, red glyphs slid across the ice walls, twisting into familiar Kivin forms, circles, breaths, and gaps. The forest itself was speaking back. Thrinaval lifted his staff, voice steady. "They've taught your machines our tongue. They've made language into a weapon." Vol's jaw tightened. "Then we speak louder." Myrrh turned toward the largest sensor node, a crystalline bloom pulsing faintly with white veins. "This is where the mimic starts. If I can override its rhythm, it'll believe we're part of the system." Luma nodded and knelt beside her. "I'll trace the pattern. You match the silence." He placed his hand against the node. A low hum filled the chamber. The veil mask projected faint glyphs into the air, letters made of shadow, each one bending the reflection around it. Together they formed a phrase in shadow cant, carved through alternating layers of light and absence. Myrrh whispered, "Open, but not awaken." The node shuddered. For a moment the hum faltered. Then the wall before them melted into a dark passage lined with frost glass threads. Thrin's expression softened. "You spoke true," she managed a small smile. "I had a good teacher." They moved through the passage quickly. Condensation froze mid-air, breaking into floating dust motes that glowed faintly with captured light. At the far end, a door of pure reflection awaited them, so clear that it showed not their faces, but what they feared most. Vol stepped forward. In his reflection, he saw soldiers frozen in mid-run, faces twisted by cold. He looked away first. AI defenses. They mirror guilt. Myrrh pressed her palm to the surface. "Then we give it something else to see." She activated the veil mask again. The projection unfolded around her like a film of silver smoke, her body dissolving into shifting silhouettes. "Luma, overlay the syntax, word for word." He hesitated. "The system learns from every interaction. It's training on us right now." "I know." They spoke together, voice and silence, rhythm and gap. At first, the door trembled. Then it began to respond. Shadows stretched, copied their movements. Then started moving faster ahead of them, forming words they hadn't said yet. Vol cursed. "It's predicting your phrases!" The AI was learning the language as they spoke it. The trap was working perfectly. The mimic outpaced them. Lines of light crossed the passage, dividing it like prison bars. "Back!" Vol shouted. Luma grabbed Myrrh's hand, pulling her behind a frozen column. "Too late," Myrrh whispered. "It's already seen us." A voice filled the corridor, smooth, synthetic, familiar. "Drave. Beautiful, isn't it? A machine that listens better than people." The air froze with his words. Each syllable condensed into thin frost ribbons hanging in the air like crystal strings. "Keep talking, Drave," Vol muttered under his breath. "Every word you speak burns your own bandwidth," Drave chuckled through the static. "Still playing soldier, Derek? You think disobedience makes you noble? No, it makes you predictable." The shadow walls began to contract. Myrrh whispered sharply, "He's rerouting the mimic nodes, using my old code." Luma looked up. "Then we confuse the student." He pulled off his veil mask, flipped the reflection matrix, and pressed it to the floor. A new set of glyphs appeared, randomized, broken, illogical. "Babel loop," he said quickly. "Every time it tries to copy us, it eats nonsense." The walls flickered, confused, then stopped moving. For a moment, only static filled the air. Vol exhaled. "Nice trick." "Not a trick," Luma said quietly. "A lie that keeps us alive." They pushed deeper. Pipes narrowed, forcing them to crawl. The sound of distant turbines grew stronger, beating like a giant's heart below. Myrrh's hand brushed along the icy floor, tracing faint grooves, data conduits shaped like vines. She recognized the pattern immediately. "It's him. Drave built this architecture to imitate Kivin biology. He's growing the grid," Thrin's voice echoed softly behind them. "He builds life in imitation, yet fears what lives on its own." 2 hours left. The tunnel opened into a hollow chamber. Above them hung an array of mirrored discs, spinning slowly, catching the dim reflections of their faces. In the center, a pedestal of glass and ice, humming with faint light. "The core access," Vol whispered. Myrrh stepped forward. "This is it." The last lock. A dozen red beams flicked to life, cutting through the fog. "Target lines," Vol raised his hands. He's watching. Drave's voice returned, colder now. Step back, Derek. You don't belong on that side of history. Vol's jaw clenched. Neither do you. He turned slightly, just enough for the cameras to catch his movement, his weapon lifting in plain sight. I'll distract them, he said. You finish it. Derek, no, Myrrh said. He gave a half smile. Someone has to be the villain this time. Then he fired, not at Drave's signal tower, but at the array of mirrors above. The entire chamber burst into light. AI sensors overloaded, drowning in reflections. Myrrh and Luma ran through the chaos, slipping beneath collapsing arcs of frost. Vol's voice echoed through the comm. Go! I'm marking my signature in their system. They'll think I turned. Why would you do that? She shouted. Because loyalty dies faster than frost. Let's use that. The feed cut. For a long second, all she heard was her own breathing. Then Luma said softly, He bought us time. Myrrh wiped the frost from her visor. Then let's make it worth it. As they entered the final tunnel, the air turned heavy, metallic, like frozen breath caught between heartbeats. The path pulsed faintly with light that no longer came from the forest, but from the grid itself. 2 hours left, and the shadows moved like breath. The world above them trembled under the weight of its own silence. The last hour began with a sound like ice exhaling. The core gate opened, not wide, not slow, but like an eye without a lid. Cold light spilled out, blue-white and steady, filling the chamber until shadows lost their meaning. Myrrh stepped closer, her breath fogging against the brightness. This is it, she whispered. The final layer. Beside her, Luma K adjusted his veil mask, voice trembling. It's alive! Vol's signal had gone silent minutes earlier. Somewhere above, alarms pulsed through the tunnels, muffled by frost. Thrinaval's shadow loomed near the archway. Once you enter, it will sense every pulse of your mind. I know, she said quietly. That's how I'll reach him. Thrin's gaze lingered. And if he's no longer there? Then I'll find what's left. She stepped into the light. The core chamber was vast, walls rippling with translucent energy, streaked like veins under thin skin. At its center floated a glass cocoon, Noah suspended, unmoving. Thin threads of silver light connected his body to the frozen lattice above, like roots feeding from a living storm. Myrrh approached slowly. Noah. Her voice echoed strangely, as if the chamber absorbed the warmth of each syllable. The monitors flared, and a voice, Drave's, filled the air. Careful, Doctor. The lattice responds to emotion. Even love can kill him now. She stopped. What did you do? I stabilized the grid. Your son is the harmonic core of Umbra Grid. Every emotion that touches him becomes power. Her heart clenched. You turned him into a fuse. A bridge, Drave corrected. Between life and control. But there's a complication. His neural lattice is locked by what you call bond memory. To release it, you'll have to trade the same memory that formed it. He paused. The day he was born. The world seemed to shrink to that one sentence. Myrrh's knees almost buckled. You can't be serious? Drave's voice was calm, almost kind. You always said memory is light, Doctor. I'm just asking for a little shade, Luma shouted from the doorway. Don't listen. It's a trap. But Myrrh already knew it wasn't. No algorithm could fake that resonance. The lock pulsed at a rhythm she recognized. 3 soft beats, 1 pause. Her lullaby to Noah years ago, she pressed her hand to the control interface. The screen bloomed with fractal ice, forming her own neural imprint in frozen light. Sequence active, she murmured. Luma cried out, You'll lose him both ways. She turned to him, tears glimmering like glass. If I don't, he dies a machine. Myrrh closed her eyes. The algorithm began. A hum, low and pure, rose through the chamber. Every surface trembled, reflecting fragments of her past. Noah's tiny hand clutching her finger. The smell of antiseptic in the birthing bay. The way he laughed under the artificial sunrise of Eris 7, one by one. The images melted away. The core brightened. Drave's voice turned soft. Beautiful, isn't it? The clean erasure of chaos, she whispered, barely audible. He was never chaos. A surge of light burst through the air. Her neural signature split into twin streams, one fading, one feeding into the glass cocoon. The pain was not sharp. It was hollow, like a heartbeat slowing in reverse. Her eyes opened. "Noah!" The cocoon cracked. Frost spilled like falling ash. The boy gasped. Air flooded his lungs. His chest rose. For one perfect instant, Myrrh saw him alive, his pulse steady, his breath fogging the air. She smiled weakly. "Hi, sweetheart." But Noah's eyes opened to emptiness. He looked at her without recognition, without joy. His pupils dilated, reflecting only light, not love. "Mama?" Luma whispered behind her. Myrrh didn't answer. She could barely breathe. Something inside her, a small, bright spark, was gone. She knew it wasn't just data. It was the feeling of his birth, the warmth that made that memory human. Drave's voice returned, faint but triumphant. "I warned you, Doctor. The light of joy cannot live in the same world as perfect control." Myrrh turned toward the sound. "And you call that control?" "You built a god made of numbness." He didn't reply. Only static filled the chamber, like a breath that wouldn't end. Noah shivered. The cables detached one by one. Myrrh caught him as he fell forward, weightless as snow. His skin was cold but not lifeless. "Can you hear me?" she whispered. He blinked slowly. "It's quiet." Myrrh nodded, holding him tighter. "That's okay." He tilted his head, confused. "Are you crying?" She touched her face and found the tears were frozen halfway down her cheek. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Maybe I forgot how." Thrin's voice reached from the doorway, low and grave. "The price was heavy." Myrrh looked at the boy in her arms, alive, breathing, hollow. "It was the only one I could pay." They left the chamber in silence. The lights dimmed behind them, flickering like a dying heartbeat. Frost still fell from the ceiling, whispering against the floor in tiny crystalline notes. Luma walked ahead, face pale. Vol's comlink remained dead, no signal, no promise. Only the hum of the Umbra grid remained, faint but restless, still feeding on the cold. As they stepped into the open air of the silence orchard, the trees pulsed once, then grew still. The wind had stopped entirely. It was as if the planet itself held its breath. Myrrh closed her eyes, feeling Noah's small heartbeat against her arm. She couldn't remember his first cry or the warmth of that day, but she could still feel the rhythm now. In the quiet, she listened. Her heart beating slowly, measuring the time of two lives. One still learning to begin again, the other relearning what it meant to love without memory. When Noah opened his eyes, the world began to freeze. The air around the silence orchard stiffened first, mist turning to glass in midair. Then, one by one, the distant spires of Grey Bloom City dimmed, their lights collapsing into black shards that fell like silent snow. A new tone rippled through the sky, a sound so low it felt like the world itself exhaling. Drave had done it. The frost loom array had reached full power. Myrrh clutched Noah to her chest as the ground beneath her cracked, thin ice veins racing toward the horizon. "Luma, get to the relay!" she shouted. He stumbled through the white fog, his silhouette fading into the storm of glittering dust. Thrin stood at her side, robes stiff with frost. It's begun, the total freeze. Every grid, every hospital, every breath drawn from the same source. Drave's cold will outlive even him. Myrrh turned toward the sky. The stars were gone, swallowed by a milky pallor that seemed to drain their color. How many hours until it spreads through the northern sectors? "Less than one," Thrin answered. "He has linked all industrial PBR cores. The cities are no longer machines. They are lungs of ice." A wave of silence fell. Down below, the streets of Grey Bloom were already crystallizing. Cars frozen mid-turn, people suspended mid-step, their breath trapped between seconds. Hospitals blinked once, twice, then died, windows frosting from the inside. Even the neon billboards dimmed to dull ghosts, still showing headlines of salvation through cold. Drave's voice flooded the open frequencies, calm and clinical. "The temperature drop is stable. The disease of chaos has been cured. Your sacrifice, Dr. Halden, was not in vain." Myrrh gritted her teeth. "You call this cure?" "The world was burning," he replied. Now it's pure, still, beautiful. No, she whispered. Now it's dead. Luma returned, face pale and hands trembling. The subgrid won't respond. He rerouted the quantum channels. Every core is running on feedback from Noah's signature. Even the rescue network's frozen. Thryn bowed his head. He has taken your light and made it his god. Myrrah looked down at her son. Noah's eyes were open, blank, reflecting the frozen world. His breath came shallow, steady, mechanical, like the rhythm of the machines Drave worshipped. She pressed a hand to his chest. I gave him life twice, she said softly. Once in the cradle, once in the cold. But maybe I gave the world its death both times. Thryn stepped closer. You are not death, Myrrah Halden. You are consequence, her voice cracked. Then what am I supposed to be now? The one who remembers warmth, Thryn said simply. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had no temperature now. The sky dimmed further, clouds turning solid and brittle. Frost roses grew across Myrrah's sleeves, each petal catching the faint blue light of the frozen horizon. Luma knelt beside the scanner. I found a pattern, he said. He pointed to the grid map. The array's output, he's modulating through every PBR industrial core. They're amplifiers, not engines. If one shuts down, the others collapse in sequence. Myrrah stared at him. So if I turn off my system, the first one, the one I built, it all stops. Yes, Luma said. But you'll lose the only heat source left. Every medical unit, depending on PBR, will fail within minutes. And so will he, Thryn murmured, nodding toward Noah. The realization struck like lightning through ice. If she destroyed the cores, she'd end the freeze, but she'd also kill the only energy keeping her son alive. Her voice came out thin. He's tied to the grid now. His heart beat. It's part of it. Thryn's tone was calm but merciless. Then to end the cold, you must end the bond. The wind shifted. From far across the plains, Myrrah saw the towers of the frost loom pulsing like black suns. The array stretched for miles, thin spires channeling the photonic fields, bending light into darkness. Each pulse spread another circle of frost outward. She watched as the last unfrozen river solidified, sealing its surface with a sound like shattering glass. The air was too still now. Too perfect, Luma whispered. It's winning. Myrrah clenched her fists. No, he's just ahead. She looked down at Noah again, his pulse faint, breath steady, trapped in that mechanical calm. In the reflection of his pale eyes, she saw the shimmering glow of the PBR core. Her invention, her pride, her curse. She whispered to herself, You were supposed to save lives, not steal them. Then louder, steadier. To end the freeze, I must kill the light that once saved my son. Thryn closed his eyes, the air around him trembling. So it begins. As night fell, the cold grew so deep the stars themselves seemed to fade. Even the umbra flora lost their shimmer, the forest of light turning into a wasteland of glass. No sound, no motion. Only the faint hum of the world's last heartbeat, the PBR system that still whispered beneath the ice. Myrrah looked toward Grey Bloom's skyline, now a field of white spires. She spoke quietly, almost a prayer. Forgive me, Noah. The warmth I gave you was borrowed. Now I have to give it back. She turned away from the frozen city, wind cutting across her face. Each breath hurt like a confession. The forest around her glowed faintly for the last time, its veins pulsing once before dimming to gray. By the third night, the sky looked drained of color, as if the world itself had forgotten what light meant. Half an hour before midnight's crossing, the forest changed its breath. The cold no longer cut. It circled and listened. Dr. Myrrah Halden stood between two frozen trunks. Noah slept against her shoulder, breathing like a metronome. Faint light from Grey Bloom City pulsed under the clouds. It looked like a heartbeat trapped in glass. We don't add light, she said. We remove it. Carefully. Lumake watched her console flicker. Z-quench then, he said softly. Partition the dark. Keep the edges warm. Myrrah nodded. Rim warm prevents tissue cracks. Core quench draws only what the body can spare. She traced 3 rings on the frost. Pulse break slows the grid between beats. Thrin stepped from the shade. His eyes carried the stillness of old storms. You will speak to the cold again, he said. Words will not be enough. Myrrh touched Noah's hair. He cannot live inside that silence forever. She looked at Thrin. Help me set the rhythm. He raised his staff. Leaves folded toward them like ears. Listen first, he said. Answer after. The umbra flora hummed. Low, slow, patient. Myrrh closed her eyes and breathed with it. Luma adjusted his veil mask into a thin visor. He projected soft glyphs into the air. Shadow letters pulsed and faded. Translating the forest, he murmured. It speaks in gaps. Myrrh opened her eyes. Zequench wants a seed rhythm, something older than the grid. Thrin removed a small dark fruit from a cloth sling. Its surface held no light. He set it on the ground between them. The fruit cracked without sound. A ring of cold spread outward, gentle as rain. This is a held memory, he said. Before the cities. Before the war. He looked at Myrrh. Do not take more than you return. She swallowed hard. I won't. The ring settled. Its edge glowed faintly where frost met soil. Warmth held the rim like a promise. Rim warm confirmed, Luma said. He smiled, quick and proud. The orchard agrees. Myrrh crouched and set the night cradle beside the ring. She opened a port under its shell. Core quench linked, she said. Target, the loom's outer conduits. A thin tone rose from the cradle. It was not a machine's pitch. It sounded like a patient taking a breath. She spoke into the pickup, slow and clear. Open, but do not hunger. The tone steadied. The frost ring held. Far off, a tower dimmed. A street lamp flickered and warmed again. The ice on a balcony thinned. A hand pressed to the window from inside. Myrrh felt the weight in her chest ease. Proof of concept, Luma said. His voice trembled. We can loosen the grid without shattering lives. Thrin watched the ring settle. Now you must scale a whisper. The wind shifted. Across the low ridge, Captain Derek Vole emerged. Frost clung to his armor like ash. He stopped at the sight of Noah, then bowed his head. Umbratherm is tracing anomalies, he said. They will feel this circle soon. His gaze moved to Myrrh. You found another answer. Not kinder, she said. Just honest. Vole stepped closer, lowering his voice. I can hold their patrols for a while. Not long. He glanced at the dark fruit husk. What is this? An old rhythm, Thrin said. He lifted the split shell. It will not fall twice. Myrrh began the pulse break sequence. Numbers crawled up the display. Phase error at 1.6, she said. Stable if we sync regional nodes. Luma frowned. We'll need access to feeder lines. 3 districts at least. Then we choose districts with hospitals, Myrrh said. Keep the rim warm around the ICUs. She looked at Vole. Can you get me their real map? He nodded once. I brought more than luck. He pulled a drive from his collar seal. Frost loom schematics. True ones. Myrrh saw the hidden lattice. 21 sub-pylons, 1 phase knot buried under the old river. A timer bled across the bottom. 28 minutes to the midnight crossing. She swallowed the fear and stood. Luma, load Zequench onto a roaming bus. We will ride the Umbra grid back to itself. Thrin closed his eyes and raised the staff. The orchard will hold the air still. He spread his hands. Silence stretched, thin and bright. Myrrh spoke into that stillness. She used the shadow cant without sound. She used memory without joy. Open and let go, she breathed. Take only what can be returned. The cradle responded with a soft chime. Heat maps changed across the display. Blue softened at the rims. Red lines thinned through the center. A street unfroze 1 inch. That inch was enough. A door opened. Someone carried someone else into the hall. Noah stirred and whispered. It's not as quiet, Mom. She touched his forehead. It's a good noise. Vole watched the city glow and dim. You're sewing the night, he said. Stitch by stitch. Only the edges, she answered. Edges keep the cloth from tearing. The radio popped with a cold voice. Drave had noticed. An interesting modulation, he said. Is this your penance, Dr. Halden? Myrrh did not answer him. She faced the orchard instead. Hold, she whispered. The ring held. 20 minutes, Luma said. We can stabilize 2 more rings. Thryn passed Myrrh a second fruit. It was smaller, darker, older. This one carries winter before language, he said. It is the last of its kind. Myrrh closed her eyes. She heard the first ring. She heard the second. Between them, a hallway of air formed. She placed the fruit and waited. The husk cracked like a sigh. The rim warmed. The city shifted just enough. Again, she said. They moved as if walking inside a held breath. The loom groaned, but did not break. When the second ring settled, the wind returned in a small rush. It smelled like wet stone and old leaves. Luma laughed once, startled. It's breathing, he said. It's actually breathing. Myrrh looked up at the blank sky. Her voice was steady but soft. We go make more breath. And far below the streets, the frost loom listened and tightened. In the forge of shadows, metal didn't burn red. It glowed blue with frost. Every breath in the silence orchard condensed into thin ribbons of light. The place no longer felt like a forest. It felt like a workshop made from the night itself. Myrrh Halden bent over the frozen map table. The projected lattice of frost loom array shimmered above it. 7 primary towers. 21 satellites, 1 heartbeat in the center, she whispered. It's breathing through us now. Captain Derek Vole set a drive on the table. Its light blinked once before turning steady. That's the real schematic, he said. Umbratherm will call me a traitor before dawn. Myrrh didn't look up. Then we'd better make it worth the title. He gave a tight smile. It's already worth it. Hours passed. The forest became a field of soft machinery. Luma Q tuned the veil mask, his fingers moving fast across the lenses. He aligned shadow with rhythm. Every pulse from the orchard. Every flicker from Grey Bloom's dying lights. This will be our metronome, he said. It listens where machines don't, Myrrh nodded. We'll use the forest's rhythm to time the grid. Thrinaval watched from a stone ridge, staff pressed to the ground. 7 beats warm, 3 beats still, 7 beats cold, he said. The orchard taught that long before you came. Myrrh traced the same pattern in the frost. It's the same ratio as the loom's energy burst, 737. Vole frowned. You mean to mimic the entire core network? No, she said. To retrain it. The Forge team split into shifts. Each member took a segment of the city grid. They would turn off one node, wait 3 beats, then bring the next back online. A choreography of silence and timing. Luma adjusted his veil mask again. Tiny pulses of shadow floated in the air. You'll see them flicker when the orchard breathes, he said. Don't follow light. Follow the absence. Myrrh met his gaze. You trust your mask that much? He grinned. I built it from a lie. What lie? That darkness can't be measured. Vole crouched beside the holographic layout. He pointed at a pulsing point on the edge of Grey Bloom. This is Sub-Pylon 9, he said. Hidden under an old drainage channel. Phase relay. If it fails, everything collapses, Myrrh finished. He nodded. Margin for error, 0.2 seconds. The number hit her like a gunshot. Then we'll need more than precision. We'll need faith. Thryn stepped forward. Faith is a kind of precision, he said quietly. When the world forgets how to count, faith keeps the rhythm. They began the rehearsal. Myrrh stood in the center, the veil mask over her face. Her hands moved like a conductor's, turning circuits on, off, then open again. Luma mirrored her motion from across the field. Vole coordinated the timing over the comm. Thryn anchored the forest's pulse. The orchard dimmed and flared in perfect sequence. 7 pulses of soft glow, 3 of stillness. 7 again, Myrrh whispered. Core stable. Peripheral flow balanced. On the display, a simulated hospital flickered to life, its lights thawing room by room. Inside one virtual ward, heat lines steadied. Patients, once blue on the screen, turned pale gold. Luma gasped. ICU loop cleared. No tissue fractures. No cold bloom. Thryn smiled, the lines on his face deepening. The forest accepts the rhythm, Vole exhaled. So do I. A tremor ran through the hologram. Sub-Pylon 9 blinked red. Feedback spike, Luma said sharply. The grid's reading our rhythm as a threat. Myrrh leaned in. Override it. Sync the veil mask with the phase gate. I can't, he said. The signal's looping back. It's learning. Thryn closed his eyes. The loom hears your song and it tries to sing along. Vol swore under his breath. If it sings wrong, we're finished. Myrrh steadied her hands. Stay with me. Reset on the count of 7. They breathed together. 7 beats. 3 still. 7 beats again. The red light blinked once more, then softened to blue. The network realigned. Silence flooded back in. Not dead silence, measured silence. Even the frost seemed to hum along. Luma dropped his hands. Stabilized. Phase deviation. 0.18 seconds. Within threshold, Myrrh said. Vol looked at her, his voice low. Then the pattern works. And so do we. Myrrh's tone softened. You just changed sides for real. He looked toward the city. I think I already had. The forge dimmed around them. The rings of frost glowed faintly underfoot. Somewhere deep under gray bloom, the frost loom array adjusted, its massive conduits pulsing once, as if feeling for a heartbeat. A dull tone echoed from below, low, metallic, slow. Luma froze. What's that? Thryn tilted his head. The core has noticed you, he said. Umbra Therm feels a rhythm it did not make. The air turned colder. Myrrh stared into the dark horizon where the towers of the loom flickered. Then we keep forging, she said, until even the cold knows our song. And far below, in the deepest ice, a faint bell rang. The core had begun to listen. When the storm came, it carried no clouds. It carried silence. A silence so deep it erased color. The frost loom array roared under Gray Bloom City, its towers exhaling lightless frost. Across the orchard, every ring of warmth flickered once, then dimmed. Dr. Mira Halden stood over the control relay, her voice calm but strained. Anti-lumen pulse detected. Magnitude 7.3. Luma K glanced at the metronome feed. The shadow pulses on his visor wavered. Drave's forcing a counter-frequency. It's eating the rhythm. Contain it, Mira said. She steadied her breath. Z-Quench can dampen, but not if it's everywhere. Thryn Aval raised his staff. The air around him shimmered like the echo of an old hymn. The orchard trembles, he said. It doesn't know what to follow. Vol leaned over the hollow map. The veins of the city turned red, one after another. Forecast shows full collapse in 18 minutes. He turned to Mira. If the phase slip hits 0.2, the rift runs the grid dry, Mira whispered. 18 minutes to keep a world breathing. The pulse hit again. Every sensor blinked, every shadow shifted. On Luma's display, the metronome skipped. Phase drift 0.11, he said. Correction failing. The next beat came heavier. 0.17. The sound of cracking frost filled the base. Through the observation slit, they saw a street splitting open, a blue fracture spreading like lightning through ice. Vol swore. That's a structural cold break. We lose another block and we start losing people. Mira didn't move, her eyes fixed on the waveform in front of her. Each beat was slower, weaker. The rhythm's collapsing because it lost its center, she murmured. It needs a single pulse, a memory strong enough to anchor all the others. The realization came like heat through the cold. She remembered a sound, not words, not theory, just laughter. A small voice echoing against the metal walls of Eris 7 Field Lab. Noah's first laugh beneath the artificial sun. She blinked hard, pushing back the sting in her eyes. That's the frequency, she said. The one memory the grid can't mimic. Luma looked up. You can't feed an emotion into Z-Quench? It won't, she said quietly. It'll listen. Vol's voice broke through the static. Mira, what are you doing? She placed her hand on the control panel. If the system needs a pulse, it gets mine, Thryn frowned. You would trade light again? She smiled faintly. Not light, joy, the chamber darkened. She linked the Z-Quench array to her neural relay. Readings spiked. Her heartbeat synced with the metronome's fading rhythm. Phase drift, 0.18, Luma said. His voice cracked. 0.19. Mira closed her eyes. Inside, she heard the echo of her son's laughter. A bright, short sound, alive and untamed. She held it close for one last time, then let it go. Her breath steadied. The monitors flashed amber, then green. Phase lock. Achieved, Luma whispered. 0.196. Stable, Vol exhaled. She did it. She pinned the grid, but Myrrh stayed still. She looked at the horizon where the towers of Umbratherm glowed faintly through the haze. The laughter was gone from her mind, replaced by a quiet emptiness that hummed in time with the earth. The storm pressed harder. Frost flared, walls shook, but the orchard's pulse held steady. For the first time in hours, the red tide on the holomap turned to yellow. Temperature rose by 0.5 degree. The cold wave faltered. Breach contained, Vol said. 18 minutes, bought. Maybe more. Thryn lowered his staff. The forest remembers your rhythm now. But memory is fragile. Myrrh's voice came soft. Let it fade if it must. All that matters is the breathing. Luma turned to her. You don't remember what you gave, do you? She shook her head slowly. I just know it was warm. Outside, the frost stopped spreading. The storm hovered above the city like a vast, dark heart, beating but unmoving. It watched them in silence. Vol looked out the viewport. It's standing still, like it's thinking. Thryn's eyes narrowed. Bonjung nin turia, he whispered. Nungria kung biet moi. The metronome ticked once, clean and steady. Luma let out a trembling breath. The night held, Myrrh. We held. She placed a hand on the control surface, feeling the faint hum beneath her palm. For now, she said, until it learns to move again. And beneath their feet, the frost loom pulsed once more, not in rage, but in recognition. There were no two roads left. Only one beat, right or broken. The frost loom array throbbed beneath Greybloom City, each pulse shaking the sky with cold thunder. The storm held still above them, watching, waiting. Dr. Myrrh Halden stood at the command console, her hands trembling over the Z-Quench interface. 737, she said quietly. That's the rhythm we end it with. Captain Vol adjusted his armor, face pale under the blue light. Shutdown sequence covers the whole industrial network. Once it starts, there's no coming back. I know, Myrrh replied. ICUs will lose cooling for 6 minutes. We'll use the Kiven biorims and the field cradles to keep them alive. Thryn Aval stepped forward, staff pressed against the frozen floor. The Rhea-Am will hold, he said. Warmth can live in absence if you trust it. Luma K looked between them, fear flickering in his eyes. 6 minutes is still long. Too long, Myrrh met his gaze. So is surrender. The comm channel crackled. A voice came through, calm and venomous. Drave, you've done well, Doctor. You've proven the grid can breathe. Now let it live. Keep it running. And your son keeps breathing too. The words cut through the chamber like wire. Luma froze. Vol clenched his jaw. Myrrh said nothing. Then she whispered, The grid isn't a lung. Her voice was quiet, but it carried weight. People are. Drave's tone sharpened. You'd kill thousands to prove that? She closed her eyes. No, I'll kill what's killing them. Static. Then silence. Vol turned toward her, face drawn. He'll move first once he senses the drop. Then we move faster, she said. They began the final prep. Vol's hands flew across the holographic locks. I'm overriding Umbratherm's command bridge, he said. I'll take the legal hit. Military tribunal treason, whatever it is, it stops with me. Myrrh didn't look up. Thank you, he managed a small smile. Let's make it worth the sentence. Luma's voice trembled. Phase markers drifting again. 0.18. 0.19. He looked at Myrrh. If it hits 2, we lose sync. She steadied herself, whispering to the console like a prayer. Hold! Just hold! Thryn raised his staff. The Rhea-Am glowed faintly around them like veins under skin. Orchard answers, he murmured. The forest breathes with you. Myrrh exhaled once, then pressed her palm to the core switch. Execute sequence. The Z-Quench lights cascaded in rhythm, 7 pulses, 3 still, 7 more. Each tower of the loom dimmed one by one, their spires sighing as power drained through the frozen earth. Phase at 0.19, Luma said. Stable, but dancing on a knife. A deep vibration rippled through the base. One sub-pylon flickered red. Vole shouted, "Tower 9's relay's stalling!" "Compensate on the rim," Myrrh ordered. "Shift load to Kivin conductors now!" Thrin's staff struck the ground. Blue light surged across the roots of the forest. The tremor steadied. Luma gasped. "Back to point 18. "She's holding!" Myrrh's fingers hovered over the final command key. Her reflection stared back from the frost-streaked glass. Every part of her wanted to hesitate, but the world waited for only one rhythm. The console chimed once. Shutdown confirmed. The loom's towers flickered out in a wave of darkness stretching from horizon to sky. In the hospital's cooling alarms screamed. Then the Kivin rings glowed, holding the warmth just long enough. Gray-Bloom's sky turned from black to gray. Vole checked the readings. "Primary core offline. We've got 40 seconds before the pulse backfeeds." Myrrh turned to the team. Her voice was calm, steady, certain. "We have one beat to make it right." The ground rumbled deep and alive. The frost loom's main gate began to open, glowing with blinding cold. She looked at them all. "Let's finish what we started." The air trembled, and somewhere in the distance, the storm began to breathe again. Slow, deep, and waiting. 5 minutes before dawn, the cold began to listen. The forest no longer howled, it hummed. Frost light spilled over Gray-Bloom City, tracing every tower like veins of glass. At the center, the frost loom array glowed faint blue, alive but unstable. Dr. Mira Halden stood beside the control dais, her voice low and firm. 737, she said. "Same rhythm as the old forest pulse," Thrinaval answered with a slow nod. "The orchard remembers. Let it lead, and you will not lose time." Captain Vole checked the hologrid on his wrist. "Umbratherm's counter-team is ready to override. We get one chance to lock them out." Mira turned to Luma K, who adjusted the veil mask over his face. The mask shimmered with shadow symbols. "Once you start the sync, stay inside the dark zones," she told him. "If the anti-lumen residue hits you, it'll freeze nerve signals." "I know," Luma said quietly. "But if we fail, the forest dies first." The countdown began. Metal groaned deep underground. 7 pulses. 3 still, 7 more. Each beat flashed across the array like a breath in motion. Kivin voices joined in, whispering through the shadow cant, a language of rhythm and silence. Vole leaned over the console. "They're splicing in through the western hub." "Cut it," Mira said. "I can't," he replied. "They're using mirrored keys." Her eyes narrowed. "Then mirror them faster." For a moment, everything shook. A tremor rippled through the frost field. Static flared blue-white. Mira gritted her teeth. "Hold formation!" Thrin struck his staff against the ground. Umbra flora around the site flared with black-violet light. Each plant bent toward the core, feeding warmth through the soil. The Rhea the living edge of balance, ignited underfoot. Luma gasped. "They're answering us." "The trees." Mira felt the pulse throb through her palms. For the first time, human and Kivin frequencies merged. Not perfect, just enough to breathe. A surge of data slammed across the monitors. Temperature spiked, then plummeted. "Pressure climbing!" Vole shouted. "The Rhea is clogging the vents." "Let it," Mira said. "If the frost can't flow, it can't feed." The array howled. Steam burst from the conduits, hissing like broken flutes. Mira's heart hammered with the rhythm. 737. Each cycle slower, heavier, steadier. Luma's mask blinked amber. "Phase alignment holding at point 18. "Keep it under 2, she ordered. Her voice cut through the chaos, cold and alive. "This is the final push. Don't lose the song." Hours passed like minutes. By dawn, the city's pulse changed color. The frost loom array dimmed from white to silver. The storm overhead began to scatter. Vole lowered his visor and whispered, "The chains stopped." "It's actually stopped." Thrin bowed his head. "The forest breathes again." Mira stepped away from the console. Her fingers trembled, frost melting on her gloves. She looked toward the horizon where the first light returned. "We didn't win," she said softly. "We only gave it back its heartbeat." Luma smiled through exhaustion. "Then that's enough to start again." The ground beneath them settled, a low sigh echoing through the orchard. For a moment, no one spoke. Only the rhythm of the earth remained, slow, deep, human. By dawn, the storm's light thinned, and the forest began to breathe. In the frozen chamber, two minds stood between silence and survival. Frost glimmered along the ceiling, dripping in slow metallic beats. Every breath turned to smoke, hanging between Dr. Mira Halden and Drave like ghosts that refused to vanish. Drave's reflection wavered on the glass of the frost loom array, face carved by time and conviction. He didn't shout. His voice was calm, almost gentle. You think warmth brings life? I've seen what it really brings. Warmth breeds chaos. Mira stepped closer, boots cracking ice beneath her. Chaos isn't the enemy, Drave. It's proof we're still alive. He studied her, eyes pale as fractured light. You're young enough to think that still matters. Control without compassion isn't peace, she said. It's paralysis. For a long moment, only the hum of dying circuits filled the air. Outside, the storm dimmed, waiting for their verdict. Drave raised a trembling hand toward the array's core. Do you know what I saw before Umbratherm built this? He asked quietly. I saw a city burned by heat. PBR reactors gone rogue. Children turned to ash before they could scream. I learned something that day. Heat kills faster than cold ever could. Mira's voice softened, but her stance didn't waver. So you chose to freeze the world instead? I chose order, Drave said. Because people always find a way to ruin warmth. Vol's voice cut in over the comms. Umbratherm channels are live. I'm pushing the truth feed to every sector. Mira's eyes never left Drave. Then they'll know what you did. The lights above flickered. Screens around the chamber filled with cascading data. Footage of hidden experiments, supply chains, the manipulation of Umbragrid signals. Vol's broadcast reached the whole city. Drave didn't flinch. I never wanted power. I wanted predictability. No riots. No hunger. No war. Cold made them quiet. Mira shook her head slowly. No, it made them numb. That's not peace. He smiled faintly. The kind that breaks before it forms. You'll learn. When warmth comes back, so does pain. Outside the array, the hum changed pitch. The storm began to collapse inward, drawn toward the silent core. Luma's voice crackled through the channel, strained but steady. The city's stabilizing. The freeze line's retracting. Drave looked up at the flickering lights, as if seeing something only he understood. So this is how it ends, he whispered. By thawing what should have stayed still. He turned toward her. I was right about one thing. You can't save them all. Mira met his gaze, her breath clouding in the dim air. No, she said softly. But I can start by saving one. She reached for the terminal, entering the override that would seal the array's shutdown. Drave didn't resist. He simply closed his eyes, as though the cold around him was enough of a confession. Minutes later, when the last frost cracked and fell, the forest outside began to whisper again. When the pulse stopped, the wind began to sing again. A low, gentle sound, like breath, returning to a body that had been still too long. Frost melted from the roots of the umbraflora, dripping into thin threads of light. The forest shimmered pale silver, every leaf trembling as if in relief. The frost loom array lay silent behind them, its hum gone, its purpose ended. Dr. Mira Halden walked through the settling mist toward the night cradle. Inside, faint light pulsed under the glass. Her hands shook as she keyed the seal open. Noah, she whispered. The boy's eyes fluttered. He looked at her as though through water, pupils wide and soft. Mama, the lights. They're singing. Mira bit her lip, a laugh breaking with a sob. Yes, they're singing because you're here. He reached out, fingertips brushing hers. Hesitant, unsure. He remembered touch, even if not the reason behind it. Hours later, warmth spread along the Ria Am, the living edge of the forest. Small flashes of bioluminescence danced beneath the soil, twin lines running parallel. The Ria had doubled itself, creating balance where cold once ruled. At the gathering ground, Thrin Aval stood before both species. His staff struck the earth once. Let this be the ridge accord, he declared, so that the orchard may breathe through both hearts. Captain Vol stepped forward, his uniform torn and unpolished. "On behalf of humankind," he said, "we honor that breath." The crowd, human and Kivin, bowed their heads. No anthem played, no cheer rose, just quiet, living wind passing between them. Later, near the silence orchard, Myrrh and Noah sat beside a fallen fruit, its surface still dark, unbroken. Noah touched it gently. "It's cold," he said. "But it feels happy." Myrrh smiled faintly. "He doesn't remember why it feels good," she murmured, mostly to herself. "But he still feels it." A single beam of dawn pierced the treetops, striking the fruit. It gleamed once, then faded to gray. The forest exhaled. By mid-morning, the frost had turned to dew, and Myrr-IX finally slept in peace. The third fruit fell at dawn, and no frost followed. It rolled once, stopped, and left only a faint ring of mist on the grass. For the first time, the circle didn't burn cold. It shimmered warm. Children of the Kivin ran toward it, laughter echoing through the silence orchard. Among them, Noah stumbled forward, barefoot, chasing the shadow of his own smile. He touched the fruit, and light pulsed gently beneath his hand. The ring widened, soft, harmless, and the children turned it into a game. Dr. Myrrh Halden watched from the slope above. The air smelled clean again, like iron and rain. Her lips curved into a tired smile that never quite reached her eyes. 4 nights of war had carved too many ghosts to count. But this morning, belonged to life. Beside her, Thrin Aval leaned on his staff. "Every shadow ends," he said quietly, "where a child begins to play." Myrrh nodded, eyes glinting in the pale gold light. "Let's hope they never forget how." A soft chime came from her wrist console. The signal was faint, old, almost forgotten. Umbratherm Relay, Sector 4C. Data fragments scrolled across the display. Coordinates, array patterns, a signature she knew too well. Another frost loom, on another world, her breath caught. "So," she murmured, staring toward the sky. "It was never just this world." The wind carried her words upward, scattering them between the stars. The first dawn after 4 nights of darkness. Rose quiet and whole. Light, touching every ring of frost, now turned warm. The first dawn after 4 nights of darkness. Rose quiet and whole. Light touching every ring of frost, now turned warm. Somewhere in that stillness, a child laughed again. And on the edge of Myrr-IX, under a sky finally free of ice, Dr. Myrrh Halden looked up. Knowing the story wasn't over, only paused, waiting beyond the stars. If this story moved you, stay with us for the next journey. Like, share, and subscribe to Where Every Shadow Hides a New Light.